Hey fam, what's going on? What's going on? It's Damon Rich.
And I'm Tamika Rich.
Hey, welcome to Vow Sex and Housekeeping. We are glad to be here with you. Thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight we are going to talk about marriage struggles. We are going to talk about um, value, consistency,
Mm-hmm.
and peace.
Mm-hmm.
Value, consistency, and peace. Three words that I've had a lot of conversation about here lately
Mm-hmm.
in the past couple of weeks. So we're going to get into it right after this.
Vows, sex, and housekeeping. Join the conversation. This is what you needed. Let's go.
All right, welcome to Vow Sex and Housekeeping. We're going to get
Welcome.
into it. Marriage struggles, values, consistency, and what's the other thing? Yeah, values,
Peace.
consistency, and peace. There it is. There it is. Um, Let me just share this real quick. Just share.
As well. Me, it went so fast. I was like, wait a minute. Oh, he hit the button. Did you play
Yeah,
the
hit
intro?
the
We're
button.
on.
The intro was after the fact. Uh, hey, listen. One of the things I do want to share and make sure that we're repeatedly saying, you're going to probably start seeing less of us on social media, like Facebook, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
However, it isn't because we're not doing stuff.
Right.
It is that we are getting ready to shift heavy to our YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be doing a lot more on YouTube. So you need to go over to YouTube, like and
Join us.
subscribe to our channel. You can find it. You can find it at Marriage Refresh. You're going to find it, and that's where you're going to find Vow Sex Housekeeping, as well as other videos that we do and that we promote. So just so you'll be aware of that, that's where we're going to be at, is over on that. So tonight we're going to talk about marriage struggles. And we were talking, I think last time, we've been married for 24 years, and a lot has happened in 24 years, a lot of story to unpack.
Mm-hmm.
And you gave me room tempered water.
I did. Oh, I like room temp.
I drink it either way, but
Okay, that's what
I
I
could have
thought.
used some cold, extra cold. But anyway,
I'm just saying.
so we're going to get into marriage struggles. What to do when you don't get something beyond room tempered water.
When you usually drink room temp water. Okay.
Because we normally don't have it in the refrigerator. Okay. Okay. Anyway,
The struggles are real.
You gave me what you wanted me to have instead of getting. No, I'm teasing. So we've been married for 24 years. Clearly, we've had our struggles, our ups and downs. We'll unpack more of our story over time and different things. But I've had a couple of conversations around this. Just a question. Just a question. And I think that it's I have had more women struggle with a second part of this question than I've had men, which I found interesting because I expected it to be the other way around. So let me give you the first part of this question is, do you feel valued in your marriage? That's the first question. And I've gotten some answers, and most of the answers on both men and women's side, I don't know that I've gotten a yes. I've only gotten no's. That
All no's?
All no's. All no's. And the reasons for the no's are different, but the two words that kept coming up consistently associated with the no's was consistency and peace. Consistency and peace are the two words that came up the most associated with the question.
Part of my three C's.
Well, tell the people what your three C's are.
Yes.
And explain them.
Consideration, consistency. I just went blank.
And cussing.
No.
Oh, sorry. Consistency, consideration, and cussing.
No,
that's
consistency, consideration, and considerate, be consistent.
And cuss.
That
Until
is,
she give us the other C, it's gonna be cuss.
it's,
So
it is not.
consistency, consideration, and if you don't do those two things, she gonna cuss. That's
Compassionate. I don't know. I always like, I go blank. No,
I like cussing better.
I like compassion better.
Oh, okay. Well,
Compassion, consistency, and consideration.
okay.
3 C's of her needs.
3 C's of her needs is
Mhm.
consistency,
So did you get
compassion,
consistency mostly from the women?
mostly from the women. I don't know that I got consideration from any men.
Mhm.
I got peace mostly from men.
Men.
I got
Mhm.
consistency mostly from women.
Good. Let's unpack.
Yeah. So when it comes to that question, let's answer it. Let's answer it. Do you feel valued in your marriage?
At times I can't give a hard no. There are some times when I felt no. But at times, yeah.
Okay.
Are you saying right now? I feel valued
No,
now.
no.
But there
okay.
are times through the years where I have not felt valued.
You can say now,
Mhm.
in the past, whatever. Just so in those seasons, in those times,
Mhm.
why?
Why? Probably because a lot of things, um, unspoken or unmet expectations was probably a lot of it. Um, and really seeing and knowing the value in myself first. So a lot of times we have to really know what value is, how we value ourselves before we can expect someone else to value us, and then what it looks like. Because
Mhm.
we can say, "Oh, I'm not being valued," and again, you goes back to what does that really mean? So
Mhm.
until I learn to really value myself, know what that is, by getting to know what the Creator, what God says, who I am, and how I'm
Mhm.
valued, um, then it was hard to maybe articulate, or it was kind of frustrating. You don't value me. Well, what does that mean, or what does that look like, or
Mhm.
what is value?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? What does
Mm-hmm.
it look like? Because I
Right.
think we're
And
really good at using buzzwords.
we are.
Mhm.
And then a lot of times, then kind of knowing and putting it together, not that the value or the things wasn't there, but just insecurities and all these other things played a part. And so once you are confident in that value, then I can, you know, um, communicate that value, or what would make me feel value, or this is who I am, you
Mhm.
know.
And I think that this is I believe that this is true and this happens. Um, just listening to something you were just saying is that I think that some of the where we don't feel like our spouse doesn't value us doesn't have everything to do with our spouse. It
Mm-mm.
does have to do with our own journey.
Mm-hmm.
It does have to be do with our own confidence, because that person could be valuing you in a way that you've shown them to value you in your unhealedness. I don't even want to say brokenness. I'm gonna make up a word. Unhealedness.
Okay.
Um,
Like born.
yeah, like born. If you can use born, then we can say manned of
Okay.
God. Then I can say unhealedness.
Okay.
So in that unhealedness, I think that maybe that person is valuing you the way that you taught or told or showed them. But as you mature and uncover those wounds that
Mm-hmm.
have maybe nothing to do with them, you hold them accountable for valuing you or loving you the way that you said you wanted to be loved when you were broke or when you were unhealed,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't get the memo that, oh, I got healed in this area and now I don't like it anymore.
Right. Because we don't communicate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just expect people to just know, oh, I just want you to know that I am now healed, saved, and delivered.
Mm-hmm. Because I think what happens is a lot of times as women, we do, and maybe men too, there are some things that we figure you should know or know about us. And I think that's when you have really good, true connection. Hey, I just kind of know these things about my spouse, but not everything. And so when you said that, there are some things that we definitely need to communicate that we don't, that we just figure, oh, they should know, or they should know, or they should know.
Yeah.
And so then it does make you feel unvalued because they should know I'm a boss and they should know, I'm this and they should know I have their best interest at heart or in mind. And they should know I'm doing all of these things for us and the family and, you know.
and you know what I'm gonna say about that mind reading stuff.
Yes.
The God of all the universe says, "Make thy request known." He says this even though in his word he says, "I know what you have need of before you even ask."
Mm-hmm.
Yet he still says, "Open your mouth."
Right, because
Right.
it's being vulnerable.
It
And that's
is.
what vulnerability is. It's showing a part of communication, being vulnerable, that I need to express my need.
Oh, and the key word in that and that is the real big part about vulnerability. I need to be able to say, "I need you."
Mm-hmm.
So if they meet it without me having to say it, then I still get to kind of be protected because I ain't ask you for that. If I get in my pride or something or whatever. But when I ask for that need and they potentially reject that need, now I've risked. And there is a saying, and I agree with this: there is no true love. There is no real love without full vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't have, you can tell a
True.
person you love them all day long. If you are
To
not vulnerable
pieces.
with that person, you do not love that person. You may have a form of love for that person, but you don't love them the way that you want them to believe you love them because you lack vulnerability.
Right, because you feel like when you're vulnerable or give that to someone, then they have the right to hurt you with it or throw it back at you. And sometimes, if you're not healed or have your healedness all the way, you think of yourself less than who you really are because, oh, now I'm vulnerable, and because they may be able to do this, this, and this, or because I've let them see this side or piece of me that is not perfected or not even good sometimes, or it just is what it is, then yeah, sometimes it's a sense of pride too,
Yeah.
that I can't be vulnerable and share. And some of it is if you haven't done the work or you have trauma or brokenness or any of those things, sometimes that does keep you from being able to be vulnerable. So I will say that we're not just going to say, oh, because people, you do show up sometimes. And there are some times where you feel like, hey, I wish I could be more vulnerable than I am, or I want to be this. But if you've had past hurts and traumas and pains and all of those things that you have not worked out, that will definitely keep you from being vulnerable.
Absolutely.
So
it will.
it goes back to, again, communicating that and working on it if you have to work on it together. Yeah, all of those things.
100%. 100%. And I think that is so important, that happens as far as like understanding, like, where am I want to say this about being healed because I want people that are considering getting married, already married, and you're looking at it saying, "I didn't know this person was so broken," blah blah blah. And you even hear people out there, well, make sure you do all your work and get fully healed before you enter into that marriage. And this just came across my mind early. There is no such thing.
There's not. I listened to something today, and that was funny that you said that. And that was the thing, because people are, even when you go, and you do have to be careful about this particular thing. Well, no, I'm not ready, or it's not, this is not the time, or I'm gonna just hurt you or damage you, and all of these things. And that could be true. There are certain things that you need to talk about, work through before you go skipping down to the altar with this person. But sometimes that is, I don't even want to say a cop out, but again, some more brokenness, trauma, and insecurities are things that you feel like, hey, because I haven't done all of my work, there is no such thing, because we're becoming and we're going to continue to do that. So there's always going to be some type of work, because we're not perfect. We're not perfect or haven't reached perfection. So there is going to be work along the way regardless. So the healing journey is a continuing journey.
Yeah, it's that, but in addition to that, here's the other part of the equation. There are some wounds that will not be revealed until they are under a specific type of pressure,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, my leg, I always like to use my leg, right?
Mm-hmm.
As long as I'm just walking every day and I can squat and get back up or whatever, it's like, oh, that leg is great. But if I put this leg under the wrong kind of pressure, it will potentially buckle
Right.
because it's not as strong as it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
And until that particular pressure comes, then that wound may just not be, it may appear healed.
Right.
Right. So
Or
it's
not
almost
even
like,
show up until
or
then.
not even show up. And it's kind of like that, the thing on the mirror that caution, some things in the mirror are closer than they appear. And that's important because caution, some things are more healed or less healed than they appear.
Mm-hmm.
And so you end up being in a situation where you're thinking, oh, I can, everything's good. I'm going great and blah, blah, blah. But it's some things that are not going to come out
Right.
until you hit marriage.
Right. And so that's why it is so, 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 so very, very important for you to consult God on your spouse and who you're supposed to marry. Or if this person, because there may not be a one person, but the potential person or whoever you decide to say yes to, that you've consulted God to give you what you need. Because here's the thing about God: when He joins it together, He gives you the grace for it. And He says, this is enough. Even on the days you feel like, I don't know, Lord,
Mm-hmm.
His grace is sufficient. And He'll remind me or remind you, because this has happened, that He's given you the grace for this spouse.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So a lot of times everything doesn't show up right away.
Yeah. And see,
but there are red flags. Those
and pink ones.
and pink ones.
I am, I'm a big believer in the one. And a lot of people are becoming less believers of the one, or believe less in that one. And I think I just want to, because you said it, I just want to like how I think about that.
Mm-hmm.
I am not saying that you can't find someone and go and be happy with them. But I do believe that there is someone that God has for you to do purpose with. You can find a number of people that you can do life with and have a very, by our standards, happy life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And things are great. You have all the things you want. You even have the love that you want, all of those things. But you may not fulfill that purpose that is there because when it comes to purpose, you're incompatible of drawing it out. And that's not saying you will not achieve great things. Right. I want to be abundantly clear on that. I'll just use me for an example. I use my own life. And because we had this discussion before, could I have married someone else and been happy and prosperous and, great career and some of the things I did? Sure. So could you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could I have married someone and fulfilled the purpose in my life? That's where I struggle, because I don't know if I would have met someone else that God had intended for me to meet someone else. So let me say this. If God was speaking to your heart, like that's your husband, and God speaking to my heart and saying that's your wife, and I'm all in and you disobedient, or vice versa the other way, would God have sent someone else along to you to help fulfill that purpose? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Because I was disobedient, He ain't gonna penalize you and not allow you to live out your purpose, or vice versa, right? But if I'm hearing God and you're hearing God and you're like, okay, we're hearing God, then I think that's where that's where I come from, the concept of one, that one person. But when we put it in just the context of happiness, there are a multitude of people out there that can make you happy.
Right.
Multitude, right? That can make individual people happy. So I think that's the case. But back to value.
Yes.
So the word consistency was something, like I say, that showed up for women.
Mm-hmm.
And I shared something with some of the ladies from this perspective. For us as men, because we don't like doing the mind reading thing, but for us as men, a lot of times we believe we are being consistent based on what was highlighted. And when something changes and we don't get that update, then we're unaware that, oh, okay, I'm not being consistent. Like we as men, sometimes our logic gets us in trouble, but we're very logical from a standpoint of being practical. Okay, she wants security, let me do that. I want this, let me do that. Let me do, and you go down these aisles, and once you go down those aisles, it's like, okay, I'm doing everything that she wants. We go on nice vacations, we do this. I'm being consistent. What am I not? You're not being consistent in what? And that's what we get. And sometimes when it's like, when some of the guys like, and when I ask him what, she can't explain it. So what I'm supposed to do? She can't tell me where I'm not showing up.
Right. So so you said this, and I'll say what I'm gonna say, but I want you to answer this. So when you said about the security or being secure or whatever, what does that mean to a man or to you when you say, "Oh, I'm gonna make her feel secure"?
A lot of it has to, so it's twofold, because this is where it gets dangerous. There are the security that a man has been taught that he's supposed to provide, which is food, shelter, clothing, right? The basics. Provide food, shelter, clothing. I'm supposed to do those things. Once he enters into marriage, it is now I'm supposed to carry myself in a way that protects her heart, right? That means she's the only one, and I'm doing things that are supposed to protect her heart. Okay. So am I doing things to protect her heart? Yep. Keeping myself to her and her only. Okay, cool. Food, clothing, and shelter. Okay, got that covered. Okay, I got the security thing down, because we think about security from a love perspective, heart perspective, and a practical perspective of that. Make sure the car runs so she ain't broke down on the side of the road somewhere. That's what we think about in security.
That's good. That's a part of it, or it could be a part. So here's the thing, and I'm glad you said peace for you. And you know, I've been on this thing, and I wrote, actually, oh, I don't have my sticky. I wrote it down today. Or was it the other day? Maybe I wrote it in a different way. Anyways, she wants to feel safe. She wants safety. He wants peace. So you guys do want peace. We want safety, and what safety looks like when we say security. Um, feel like we're in a safe place, and it's not just protected where if somebody, knock the door down, that you're going to be the first one up or to shoot them or fight them and stuff like that. Women need safety to be who they are. And I think we talked about this a little bit, and I'm going to try to articulate it as best I can. Because a lot of times we don't know. So growing into who we are, we need that safe space or place to
Ooh,
stretch.
It's going to be good. Go ahead.
To stretch, to be so many different things that we either didn't get to be when we were younger, to find out who we really are a lot of times, because we don't know who we are, and you want to feel safe and protected while you get to do that, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes 100%
and so
sense.
while you're being vulnerable and expressing these things, you want to feel, you want to be safe or feel safe in order to do them, or to do them in that space.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking up something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking up something.
What are you looking at?
There was
and for women that when she feels the type of safety that I am talking about and that you really have to work towards, um, it affects so many different things. It affects your sex life, your intimacy. It's when we talk about intimacy for women, that's a part of that safe space, you know, and having those intimate moments. And so when you really get to a good place of safety, or she feels that, there are so many things that she gives you in return for feeling that safety or
Yeah.
having that safe place.
Ooh, I have a lot to unpack on this one, on what you just said. So, a good brother on Facebook, David Burrs, shout out to him, always dropping hot stuff on marriage and relationships. But he talked about how 5 reasons why a woman must never attempt to be a man's peace. And I agree that a woman should never attempt to be a man's peace. And I don't want you to be my peace, right? But a woman should set the atmosphere where that man can have peace, right? She should not be a disruptor of his peace, right?
Agreed.
And when I say not be a disruptor, that don't mean you can't address tough topics and this and this and that. I'm talking about senseless or what we categorize under nagging or whatever, but where it's just unnecessary conflict, right? Somebody who just like, somebody who just like drama, or they messy or whatever, like that. I don't need that, right? And not being unnecessarily difficult, but he did a good job on it. And I told him I had some thoughts. And so this is where I came in, and the reason I'm reading this is because it comes in. I said, I had to gather my thoughts, and here they are. I don't know why I spelled here, H-E-A-R. Here they are. And you pretty much nailed it in number 3. And in number 3, he pulled out the scripture, about it's better to be on the rooftop than in a house with a contentious woman. That's the type of woman that disrupts peace, right? I said, but here are my additions, and I'm taking it from the perspective of what creates peace for a healed man. That healed part is very important, but these things can also aid in a man's healing, right? So even in the unhealed man, if the things that I list are there, it can aid in his healing. So one is, agreed, a woman cannot be anyone's peace. Peace is a state of mind. Okay. 2, Proverbs 31 and 11 through 12 goes a long way to establishing an environment of peace for a man. If his wife does not possess the features of these verses, even a healed man will struggle to establish and maintain his peace. And Proverbs 31, 11 and 1 talks about how the heart of her husband can safely trust in her, and she will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. If that does not exist, it will be difficult for that man to establish and maintain peace. Okay? So she ain't even got to be contentious, but his heart isn't safe with her. Okay. Number 3, to support his peace, they both must learn and know the difference between complacency and contentment. I have experienced in my marriage, and my wife has come to understand that she often mistook my contentment as complacency. So she disrupted my peace based on this misunderstanding. And then I'm going to tell the story. Example, I told my wife earlier in our marriage I would be fine with my 84 Chevy Caprice. She revealed to me much later that she was worried and said to herself, and I'm paraphrasing what she said, oh my goodness, this man doesn't want much in life. What have I done? Right? It's kind of like, if this all he wants? She later learned that I would be content because I don't need the latest and greatest. I had other priorities, and if I got something better, then that was fine. If not, I was fine. I also didn't mean that she had to have that either, because I would expect her to ride better than me, right? But here's the piece, and why I'm choosing to read this is, in summary, I am a believer that my role as a husband is to create a safe place for my wife to love on herself and heal so that she can fulfill her part of our purpose. I cannot make her heal or do her work. but I
Right.
can help create the space. I
Mhm.
believe her role is to create a safe place for me to do the same. My piece is called quiet and calm. Her piece is called security and consistency. Not sure if I added or took away, but those are my thoughts, right?
Mhm.
Now, here's the real difficult part for men, okay? Because remember where we started out, we
Mhm.
said that marriage brings about, you can think you fully healed until you get in that marriage and it applies different types of pressure. And now you find out that you're not.
Right.
This is the frustrating part for men. We do understand, or we come to understand, because I didn't always thought this way and I matured and learned to think this way.
Mhm.
We do come to understand that that's what we need to create. But then we are frowned upon for needing that same thing. So I want you to understand the balancing act. I
Mhm.
have to create this safe place for her to love on herself, but in the process, I'm also having to create my space for me to love on myself until she get to a place where she can contribute to building the space to help me love myself. But if I drop the ball while she's trying to go in this, I'm going to get judged for that by her and anyone else. You see the juggling act?
Mhm.
Because you're asking for, I want my husband for security. I expect him to build a safe place for me or whatever. Well, what does he do while he needs that same place? And I'm going to
Right.
say those dreaded words.
Yeah, it should definitely be
Hello.
reciprocated or be both sides. That's what a marriage is. That's what the
But
common.
that's how it should be, but that's
Mhm.
not how it is. When
Mhm.
that man isn't creating that, it doesn't even seem to dawn on the woman that he's needing the same thing.
Mhm.
And so his inability to provide it for you isn't because he doesn't want to.
Mhm.
He can't, because he's also trying to build a place for himself where he can also provide that.
Right. I think the biggest thing, and I said it earlier, that because a lot of these things are expected or whatever, if you do not communicate, we have to communicate. If you do not communicate the needs and the things that you need or want to be in that space, to be able to do the things, even the need to be like, hey, I need a minute to work on this part of me, or you know what I'm saying, this thing or whatever. If you don't communicate that, it's always going to be the crazy cycle.
I hear you.
Yeah,
That's
it's
cute when you say it, though,
the
because
crazy
you know
cycle.
how men get looked at when they do that. You're looked at as weak by the very woman who's saying, communicate to me, talk to me. This is one of those reasons that a lot of times men don't feel safe talking to their woman, their wife, is because that, oh my goodness, this is so complex. This is so complex. And this is why I'm saying, I'm going to say this a different way. The woman is saying, in order for me to feel secure, I need him to create a safe place for
Mm-hmm.
me to grow. Growth also means maturing.
Mm-hmm.
So I need a safe place where I can mature, and I need him to help create that environment for me to safely mature, right? If he communicates in the midst of that, babe, I also need an area where I can grow. Well, I need to find a man that's already mature so I can have the room where I can mature.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she's looking at him as immature while saying, give me a space where I can mature.
Mm-hmm.
You see the complexity of that?
Yeah, I get it.
You know what I'm saying? And so
Mm-hmm.
that's the challenge for a man. And I said I'm gonna say those dreaded words.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what ends up in, let me get a disclaimer. Let me look in the camera. This is not an excuse or justification for doing dumb crap. Okay. For going out there and finding somebody, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But, right. And I know it's like when you say but, nothing else matters. Listen, no. However, let me not say but. However, some men, you know who's a master builder, a place for him to grow? The side chick. Not saying it's right, but that ends up being the appeal to her because she provides a safe place
Mm-hmm.
for him to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Because she doesn't look at him as weak for needing that place.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that, and this is the illusion of the side chick, is she's not as invested in him either. Right?
Right.
That's why she's not going to look down. And in
because
fact,
she don't get the whole 24 hours.
Well, it is beyond the 24 hours.
Mm-hmm. And I don't mean the 24 hours as in time, the whole him.
I know the whole him, but it ain't even that. What is good for her is if he was in a place of full growth, she wouldn't even be appealing.
Mm-hmm.
So she actually needs that weakness. Where the wife might ridicule that weakness, she needs that weakness. And for her to even have a shot, because if that weakness didn't exist, she wouldn't even have a chance.
That's
the
true.
wife, on the other hand, ridicules that weakness because that weakness conflicts with her ability to have that safe place for her to grow. So if I can't do that under you, then I need to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
That is the part that really jumps out there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the real part, because it's that yin and yang. And here's what I think solves it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I think solves it. Communication is part of it. But there has to be a basic level of safety where we can both communicate our weaknesses without us using those weaknesses against each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that I can say, hey, honey, and I went to the extreme with the side chick, but even for some men and hanging out, or even with some men in indulging in alcohol or drugs or workaholics or whatever, that becomes their safe place.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times those safe places are not healthy because those safe places are out of context, right? Work can be unhealthy.
Right.
When it's out of context. Drinking too much, unhealthy. When it's out of context, drugs, all those things, unhealthy, right? And so I think that's the challenge is like, where does he go while she gets whole? I'm providing the security, but I also need some security.
Right. It's a together thing. And working and realizing and understanding and growing to know that you both need the same thing. It's just different ways, because you're a man, I'm a woman, but both the same things are needed.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But see, here's perfect example.
So,
perfect example. This wasn't our example. It might have been secretly our example, but it didn't come out the way it come out for some people. So for that man who's trying to build that secure place, his piece is, Saturday I'm gonna veg out and just play my video game. You ain't never got no time for me. I gotta give you every waking hour.
yeah.
This is the only little piece I have.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a real viral video where the lady came in and she was so upset and you're always on this game. And he was in the middle of a Call of Duty and she just snatched the plug out of it and stopped it in the middle of, and he was so upset and people was ridiculing him for being so upset. But there's some women who actually saw it and they were like, he need to leave her. That's abusive. Because the guy was almost in tears. Grown man. He like, this, I don't do anything. This is the only thing I do. This is the only thing I have. And you won't even let me do that.
Right. And that can be a big issue. I don't think that was ever ours. Definitely not to that extreme. But there are times, and that's when I say it's so much. It's give and take. It's sitting down, communicating those needs or whatever. Because then you say, because a lot of times balance is key for a lot of things or whatever in what you do. So video games, when I met you, were playing video games, and I sat there until for some hours. Okay. That's not the thing. For women, when you get married and you have responsibilities, and I'm not saying that's right that you expect them to completely put the game down or not play video games, because when you met them, they were playing video games, right? So I think here was the thing for me, and I'll just, my truth or transparency, truth. Okay, that's fine and well. I don't mind, but it's the time that you do it. So once a week, that's no biggie. Twice a week, sometimes that's no biggie. But when you're every day committing time to doing that, and then it's how much time? You know what I'm saying? With everything, you need some balance. Oh, even like phones and social media, I'm going to commit 1 hour, or I'll do this for an hour because I know my wife needs me or help. And then it's on her to communicate what's the issue with playing the game, or if she needs help. Hey, babe, I need help in this area. And then I'm sure for a lot of people, because my thing was, hey, if we get this done and we're a team and get that together, go do you. You know what I'm saying? That was the thing. And I think a lot, and I'm not saying that's the thing for everybody, because some people just like, treat men like they're kids because they like to play video games or whatever.
Which is bull crap.
Yeah. And so, and that's their thing. And I had no issue with it. For me, the thing was the time, and when I felt like I couldn't or I didn't communicate what I needed, it was frustrating. And then it was just like, bump that game, man. Like, yeah. So yeah, so that was the thing. But no, that was not a secret, whatever, for us. There are times where I did not communicate. And then at that point, you have resentment and bitterness and all of these things building up over time, instead of just communicating.
Just opening your mouth.
Instead of just saying,
hey. Open your pie hole, right?
Because then it's like you're having a whole conversation. Well, I don't want them to think I don't want to, and I don't want to do. And then some of that becomes pride,
vulnerability.
Then, I don't want to be vulnerable to know that, I really need you to do this, or I need you, in this space because I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I got a lot on my plate. And that's especially if you have other duties, and, as a mom or wife or whatever, all these other things, if you're not communicating that need or saying even this is too much, or I can't do it right now, or you feel like you have expectations from your spouse that aren't really there, and you feel like you got to live up to these expectations that they never communicated or said they wanted. And I think we had a conversation about that early on, in marriage. And it was like, okay, so who said you had to do it this way? And
and I was just about to bring up the hot dog story.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, I was going because that is like, love my mother-in-law, bless her, right? She trained you to be a traditional wife in the sense of, Sundays, big Sunday meals, and, when y'all cook for the family, do all this stuff.
Not big Sunday meals, it's everyday
meals. Right, everyday meals, right? Yeah. Different things or whatever. So she trained you to be that way. I grew up in a house where there were nights where I watched my stepdad, my mom like, what you want to eat? Like, I'll do some hot dogs and chips. And he was fine. He might eat 3 of them hot dogs and chips, but he was fine. As long as my mama was there and he had her company, he was good, right? So that's the kind of house I grew up in. I don't know if he was happy about it. I don't know if he was sad about it or what, but that was my stepdad, right? And so that's where I learned from. So, my mama might have cooked, a home cooked meal 2 times in a week, every other week or something like that. I ain't going to say that. She might have cooked a little bit more than that. But a lot of times my mom would just go and order out and whatever. We ate from a lot of restaurants in the town or whatever and stuff like that. So for me, like in a hot dog story, you was frustrated and I got to do all that. I'm like, babe, I didn't ask you for all that. And I remember saying, be the husband that I need you to be, not who your mama told you, because your mama gave you a general template, but then that's to be adjusted. So I'm not knocking her for that.
Right.
But it's like, I can be fine with hot dogs and light bread. and some potato chips.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And
Like,
sometimes, but that's just not me.
but
Because
I
I
ain't
do
gonna
not
want
want
that
to
every.
feed you no hot dog.
I ain't want
Right,
that.
but
That
I
ain't
get
that I
it.
want it every night. But you
Yes.
know what I'm saying? Like if
Yes.
I'm 5 nights out the
Sometimes
week,
it's
we
okay.
but it's
Right.
some nights like, hey, we busy or we got stuff going on. Hold on, I think my camera done went out. Let me check this out. I don't know what done happened. My battery. Camera done off. Oh, we're gonna have to wrap this. Because for some reason.
Did it come unplugged?
I think it went never plugged in. Do you see anything?
Not yet. Just vow, sex, and housekeeping.
I be doggone. Well, that might be the end of our show tonight because I have no idea why my camera just went on out. But see what we got going on here. Is it back on?
Not yet. Oh, yes, it's back.
It's back on.
Ta-da! And we're back.
And we're back. We don't know how long we're gonna be back because my camera is acting up. This is why I need to get the battery. Oh, and it done unadjusted and everything. Bless its heart.
That's fine.
It ain't.
Oh, there we go. Right there.
Right there.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Edit that out. All right.
Right.
Okay.
But we were finishing up the hot dogs.
We're going to finish up the hot dog story and then we're going to get out of here because I don't know what's going on with technology. But anyway, I was like, I didn't need all of that, right?
Right.
Now, 24 years, hindsight, looking at that, if you needed that to feel fulfilled as a wife and a mother or whatever, that's fine. I just didn't like it being laid at my feet like I was demanding that. You're demanding this of me, and I'm not demanding that of you. Like I was raised by a very laid back, easygoing man who those type of things didn't really matter. You know what I'm saying? My stepdad never, and this goes even to the 84 Chevy Caprice, right? My stepdad never owned a new vehicle. Every new vehicle we got belonged to my mom. He was always tinkering in the raggedy truck or the raggedy car, whatever. He never, every vehicle he had, the first vehicle he got or had when we first met him, he had a nice Pontiac or something. I don't know if he got that brand new, but after he married my mom, he had a Cutlass. That was somebody he found for $700 in the neighborhood. And, it needed a little bit of work, got it, but it was a reliable car, got him back and forth. There were many years he brought him a nice mountain bike. He rode that back and forth to work or whatever. He never had a new vehicle.
Right.
So those type of things didn't matter to him. When we got ready to go out of town, of course, they hopped in my vehicle. It's theirs, but my mama primarily drove it. So it's things like that. That's who raised me. And I think that that's a very important thing for couples that you need to understand is do get to know or at least understand who raised your spouse. It's going to give you a lot of insight
Yes, yes,
into
yes.
interacting and dealing with them is going to help you. Don't even ask them about so much their childhood as much as who raised you.
Mm-hmm.
Like who poured into you, because understanding who poured into them and what they poured into them
Right.
is going to help you navigate and communicate with your spouse at a different way.
Right. You need to definitely talk about it, your family dynamic and how you came up and how you was raised. And you also need to watch and see.
Yeah.
Cause and not that people don't want to be truthful, but again, when there's something that you don't necessarily want someone to know right off or feel embarrassed or shame about or want to make it look a little different, they may not tell you the complete truth or the whole truth about it. So you need to be watchful and watch their interactions for yourself. So be around them to know how is their relationship with their mom, for men, with their mom, with their sisters, with, people in their family. And same for women. There are certain things that you're watching and looking for. How do they communicate with their family and all of these things? Because they could tell you one thing, and if you're just visiting every once in a while or whatever, because a lot of times people or you set yourself up when you don't get to know these things or whatever, and then later on down the road when you're disappointed or all the things you said, oh, I don't care about those things, when you feel like it's early on or we're so in love and those things don't matter, those things don't matter, those things matter. They really do.
Those things do matter.
And that's just a little wisdom. Those things do matter. But when you were talking about going back to value. So a lot of times, early on, or if you don't know, or perspective is wrong on a lot of on some of the things you were saying, that could have. And I'm trying to think back. Did I ever feel, and maybe not for that particular situation, but something maybe similar, where I didn't feel valued because you was like, oh, this is okay if you do this and this and this. And it's like, before that, or if that wasn't communicated, I didn't feel valued. That, hey, I'm trying to give you this, meal or this home cooked meal that a lot of men this day and age back then, don't get. Or, I felt like that was the value. That this was the value because I did these things. And a lot of time it goes back to really knowing your worth and value, and that was important, but that didn't say that you didn't value me.
Yeah. So here's something that I think is real important in saying that. Oh man, it's so super important.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is where I hear from men. And I don't think I really ever had this problem. Like some problems that some brothers have, I've not had, right? But they talk about when they, like for birthdays or whatever, because we don't get a lot of gifts as men. We don't get a lot of gifts. Yeah, Father's Day, you don't really get, we don't get a lot of gifts. But when we ask for something, we expect that to be the thing we receive, assuming that it's reasonable, right? Mm-hmm. So what I hear from men a lot is that their wives will give them what they want them to have, as opposed to giving them what they ask for, right? So, and I'm looking at the thing, and this is where, again, going back to your thing on communication.
And love language.
Right. If I think the love languages are dangerous. I want to talk about that one episode. But anyway, they can be dangerous. So anyway, but if I ask for this, right, but you give me what you want me to have, say I did ask for, hey, babe, I would like cube steak and rice for dinner, right? And then you give me a hot dog. Oh, you just gave me what you wanted me to have. Right? I asked specifically for what I wanted. And you asked me, what do you want for dinner? I want cube steak and rice. Okay, here go this hot dog and chips. Now, if that comes with zero context, like, babe, I'll cook it tomorrow because I'm really, really tired or whatever, then I might not even say, don't even worry about the hot dog. I go in there and cook my own hot dog. I can cook, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So it's like one of those things of how it maybe comes out or how it plays out or whatever. And so that's the thing that I think is so important, with regard to, like, for men, we feel like the woman gives us what we want what she wants us to have. And a lot of times
That's good.
that what she wants us to have is because that's what she wants.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to give it to you like it's a gift,
Mm-hmm.
but it's what I want.
And that sometimes can go both ways. That's almost loving somebody how you feel they should be loved instead of how they want to be loved.
I ain't talking about the love and
Mhm.
I get what you're saying there, but
Mhm.
I'm talking about like
The
in
gifts.
gifts
Mhm.
and or
I understand
requests or
that.
something or whatever. It's like, hey, say my birthday's coming up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I say, hey, babe, for my birthday, I really want to go out to Shula's, just me, you, and the kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I explicitly say that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then, lo and behold, I show up at Harry's and a whole bunch of folks. You gave me what you wanted me to have.
Mm-hmm.
Or better yet, you take me to Longhorns. I'm going to still get a steak, but you gave me what you wanted me to have.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And like, I ain't want to spend my day with these people, not today.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things. It's like, give that person don't give them what you want them to have.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
And me and you would talk about like, and I know how this I think even is kind of a perfect example. Like I tell you, babe, I'm really not hard to, I love electronics. If you get me Best Buy gift cards until I have enough to get what I want, I'm gonna be happy. But it's like, and I ain't talking about going autopilot on that.
Oh, okay.
But you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But like when I did play games, you would go and figure out the game, or you would get mad. You already got the game, and you should just told me.
That used to drive me. It was hard to surprise you or do anything because you get ahead of yourself. I'm gonna put it that way and go do it or get it. That was even the short while of when we were dating, when the No Limit was out and the CDs and was it pre-buying them or buying them or the day they come out. And I remember I was gonna try to surprise you, or I knew you loved it, the whole No Limit family in the days that the new CDs back then would drop, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna surprise him, go get it. And finally, you kind of like chilled, but I think maybe the first or second one you already had it.
Yeah.
Or we got it at the same time or something crazy. Yeah. Or either I would have to say, and this was for me, don't do it or don't get it. But that kind of gave away the surprise part of it or aspect of it for me.
I get it.
Don't do it.
I get it.
Right.
And this is just me, and I'm not saying it's right. But I'm like, well, we could just take that one back or so. I appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? But I can be that person where like, hey, I want it, I'm gonna get it, and this and that, right? And if you don't keep up on that stuff, which you wouldn't have a reason necessarily to, especially around games, then it's like I'm gonna get it before you. By the time you realize it, I got it. Right. You know what I'm saying, or something like that. But it's like, oh, okay, let me do this. Yada yada yada, and then
when pre-order would come, instead of getting it on the day that it dropped and like going to get it, it's like here, I already pre-ordered it. I just gotta go pick it up.
Yeah, yeah, it happened. Yeah. It happened. But here go the thing though, there have been times, I'm gonna share this out loud, that I had it and I ain't let you know I had it, and then I took it back. Yep, sure did.
Really?
Sure did.
Oh, okay. I believe you.
Because you don't be paying attention to the game I'm playing anyway, and then I took it back with my receipt. And like, here go, hey, I need to take this back. So yeah. So
now the cat is out the bag.
The cat is out the bag. Listen, it's out the bag. But getting back,
it was all in learning. It's the process and learning. Becoming.
You know what? You know what we expect, I think, from spouses? Mm-hmm. We expect, like I have a sit-to-stand desk in my studio, and I wanted one here at the office. And it was easy to put together, the one for my studio. No big deal. Mm-hmm. But I didn't want to put it together again. So the one I got here for the office, I saw at Costco.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the last one. I was like, is this the last one? It's like, yeah. I was like, can I just take this one? It's already put together. They're like, hold on, let me check. They check, yes, this is the last one, and we have no more coming in. So yes, you can get this. So I got one that's put together, right? So I'm happy. I ain't got to put it together.
Right.
That's what we expect in a spouse.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us walk into marriage with that false expectation that they are fully put together.
Right.
That is BS. I don't
It
care
is.
how well they look put
Right.
together. It's some screws loose, and I don't mean mentally, but it could be.
Hopefully not.
Right? Hopefully not. But there's some screws loose. There's
Mhm.
some things that need tightening up. There's some things that need addressing. There's some scrapes and scratches that need a
Oh,
little
yeah.
touch-up paint or whatever. You are not going to get it all put together. There is no Walmart
Mhm.
or Home Depot service that puts it all together. That puts it all together and say, oh, you can pay this extra amount at the altar and your
Right.
spouse will be all put together when they arrive to the house. It does not exist.
Right. And I think even when you tell people that in either premarital coaching, counseling, whatever, or just outside when you
Mhm.
talk to singles or whatever, that sometimes that connection or that really doesn't get through
Mhm.
on that part of it, because they'll be like, okay, yeah, and I get it. And then when the marriage happens after the wedding and you start to live life or go on that journey, then it's like all of these things come up and you either go back to the person or go like, what is this?
Yeah.
And this is called marriage. That's what
Yeah,
marriage
that's
is.
what it is.
It's
So-
marriage. This is what marriage is. And so a lot of times people either take it for granted or don't realize the severity of it
Yeah.
and all of the things that comes along with marriage. So really get into the nitty gritty. If you don't have a good coach or counselor, premarital, that will tell you all the ins and outs, and it's prepare you as much as you can. Nothing prepares you for it, except for doing it or being in it.
Yeah.
But there are nuggets and tools and things that you can give to help, so you don't go into it with wrong or flawed or expectations that are unrealistic.
Yeah. And
Unrealistic
and
expectations.
that is a great place to say we are not those coaches. You can attend some of our workshops that are getting ready to happen. You can attend, and I don't say that gleefully because we enjoy coaching marriages. But one of the reasons in this season we are having to give it a break and not do it is because we would, in some of it, flawed business model, right? We schedule an hour and end up here for 3, right? But you ain't pay for one, and you ain't gonna offer to pay for them additional 2 hours either, right? So change of business model, all that. But even more so than that is people have a tendency, and we have done it too, have a tendency to forget the instructions that they give you for antibiotics is the same as true for marriage coaching. So for antibiotics, when they give it to you,
For
if it say
life.
take this, if they say take this pill 1 time a day for 10 days, they say, even if you start to feel better, finish all the medicine, right? What we found is we would tell people, we say, listen, do this thing for this way, for this long, and a lot of this is for life. And no matter if it starts to look better, finish all the medicine. And what we would have do is, because we have an exercise called Every Room in the House. And we talk about 5 different rooms that you need to have conversations in your marriage, right? 5 different rooms you need to have conversations in your marriage. And we tell them what each room represents. Because we believe in giving out homework. So they'll come back and they would go and do their homework or whatever. And we say, did you get through all the rooms? No, we only got through the bathroom or whatever. And it was so good. We think we're good. We're good now, right? And they neglect the other 4 rooms. Yep. We're going to see them back in 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, one. Can we get another coaching session with you? Did y'all ever finish the rest of the room? No, because some stuff came out in the bathroom that we really need to get it because we just kept, and it's fine. If it take you a year to get through all 5 rooms, that's fine. But get through all 5 rooms. But no, you done got stuck in the bathroom and you don't want to move on to another room, or you just figured out the bathroom, or you keep wanting to revisit the bathroom. And it's like, no, you're not doing it right. And I don't have that kind of time. Because it wasn't necessarily about the money for us. The money was to make sure you put some skin in the game, right? But we don't have that kind of time, right? So that is the thing, that how we would look at it from a coaching perspective. We're coaching. We are not counselors.
Right.
We are coaches. And I think about it from a sports perspective, basketball, football. The coach gives you the play to run. It is your responsibility to execute it. The coach gives you drills to get better so that when you run the play, you can run it more effectively. But still, you have to execute.
You have to do the work.
You have to do the work. Right? Listen.
Yeah, you just have to be intentional, and you have to do the work if you want a good
marriage. If you want a marriage.
And that's anything in life. If we want a good anything, if we want a successful life, if we want, good relationships, we have to do the work.
You know what? Ooh, I'm glad you said, because I think most people think that when they come to marriage coaching, it's like the lottery. I'm finna scratch off in this doggone session and we finna hit it well and we gonna be good. No, more money gonna bring more problems. Because the more we peel back, you gonna find some stuff you didn't even know was a problem. Right? So, yeah. So just living with that and dealing with some of that stuff is just like, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. But when it comes down to value, definitely people talk about consistency. Was the thing. Men kept talking about peace and not being able to have peace. And I'll tell you something, and this is probably a topic for a whole nother conversation. Most men, and it's funny between the sexes, that most men feel like, hey, I don't know how, I don't believe, I want to have this conversation with my wife, but I don't know that she is able to handle it. And I say, what do you mean able to handle and it's not some grand conversation like, oh, I've been sleeping with my secretary and I'm ready to come clean or whatever. It's like basic life things that couples should be able to conversate with, particularly a lot of time for men, it's around how they feel about something. And they're like, I don't think my wife is mature enough. Why don't you feel that? Because anytime I talk about my feelings, we're going to end with hers.
I'm glad you said that. So did we say this on episode before already? About so if I come to you and we're communicating and we're putting this on the table and this is the issue is the issue and this is my issue and we're talking about it, you're not coming back to say, or when we're not doing tit for tat, oh, when you did this, or you're not bringing up something I did at that moment. We're having this conversation at that time. And then vice versa, I'm going to give you the same respect or that same space to, hey, babe, this is the issue. And I am not going to say, bring up a whole list of things of when you do it or you too, the you too thing. And a lot of times we as women, we do have that issue, or that problem, and I don't even know if sometimes we're just programmed that way or don't realize it. But the next time you have a intense moment of fellowship or argument or whatever you want to call it, just take a minute to say, hey, if he's trying to tell me something or talk about something or express how he feels about something or that I did, I am not going to, my immediate response is not going to be, well, you did this, or when you did it, or I'm going to listen. We're going to talk about it and we're going to resolve that issue or hopefully come to some kind of agreement. And then if I still have an issue with that or it sparks something, I am going to write it down and be like, oh, okay. And then I'm going to go pray about it and pray over it to see when is a good time for us to come back or address it or talk about it. And even how I present it to you. First of all, it should be done with right motive.
Mm-hmm.
So your motive has to be right. And I'm not just going to write it down and be like, oh, we're going to talk about it tomorrow or next week just because, he brought it up. And I want to point out that he did it too.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what we're going to do. We're going to pray about it. And then we're going to come back and be like, whenever the time is, it's like, okay, this has been on my heart. I want to talk about this particular thing too. And not because you talked about it or it was an issue for you, but, however you get into it or talk about it.
Oh, I wanna dig into that a little bit, because here's the challenge. Because it'll be almost, I won't say impossible, it'll be extremely difficult for the man to believe that the only reason you want to address this is that, oh, I don't want to address because of what you addressed 2 weeks ago. I gave it some room just for that fact. Because here's what usually happens. So that man, if he feels comfortable enough with his bride and feels like she's mature enough to handle it, he gonna potentially address it in the moment or in very close proximity. He might chew on it for a day and process it, because that's how we do, and say, hey babe, I want to talk about what happened yesterday, right? So he wanted to process it. He didn't want to be raw. He wanted to make sure he was, thinking it through, whatever. So he brings it up the tomorrow, right? So say it happened today, he brings it up tomorrow, Wednesday.
Right.
So now he brings it up tomorrow, Wednesday. You do everything, or the woman does everything that you talked about, doesn't like, okay, babe, and they solve it, right? So then 2 weeks later, she's written down her thing. She's like, hey, babe, and she comes just as jolly, whatever. Hey, I want to talk about something, saying that I really want to it's been on my heart for a while and I want to talk about. Okay. Well, you remember that thing a month ago?
Right.
Oh, and I'm not doing it because of 2 weeks ago. He ain't going to believe that, because it's like, what else motivated you? And I ain't saying that they didn't come from a right place, but I'm just saying the logical. What else motivated you to address something from a month ago?
Right.
The only thing that's changed between here and there is that I just called you out on your junk.
Right. Because that's what we do.
Right.
And we've got to stop doing it.
Yeah.
That's what we do. And that's why a lot of times we have all this bitterness, resentment, contentment, and all of these things build up or whatever. And we can have a whole list when you be like, if you come to us with one thing and be like, what about this? And what about this? And that's not the way it should be done,
right,
or communicate, because nothing is actually going to get resolved at this point. It's just going to be a whole bunch of going back and forth, and you're going to get stuck
and
right
he ain't going to
there.
never bring it up again.
Right.
Because he going to be like, no, because then I got to wait.
Time. Right.
It's going to be every time. So now, and that goes that maturity.
Maturity, right? And learning how to communicate. If there is an issue or something's going on today, short of if it's it's something that you have death or something, the timing is not right. And I'll put that. If the timing is not right, then no, you probably should put it off a little bit, or pray about it to see when you guys should address it, or you should address it or take it to him. But we've got to learn to do is communicating when the issue is the issue or the problem is the problem. Communicating, this bothered me, or this is an issue, or this is, when I have an issue, and then you have to see it as not being nagging.
Right.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the maturity on your part. Hey, she's not nagging, or always fussing. She's expressing how she feels, You
want me to tell you, because I know women struggle with knowing when it's nagging and when it's not. You know what really, how most men define nagging? Is when the thing you're bringing up, that's just annoying. When the thing you're addressing doesn't have an end.
Doesn't have an end?
An end, right? There's no way to resolve what you're bringing up. There is no way even if it's like, okay, do you just need me to listen because you need to vent?
Right.
We're fine with venting, but if you're always venting and that vent always has to do with me, that's going to be nagging. I can't resolve it. There's nothing I can do to stop the endless venting. So for men, nagging is when it does not have where the thing doesn't have a resolution. There is no way to resolve it because we like to resolve it and close the book on it. And when it doesn't have a natural way for us to resolve it, that is what is nagging, right? Now, there are some things that we as men in our immaturity will try and throw under nagging because we don't want to take action, right? That is not actually nagging because it has an end, right? So another thing that can be perceived as nagging for a man is, right, things that have artificial deadlines. Here's what I mean. Okay.
Right. Oh, this is a big one.
Yeah. Artificial deadlines.
Right.
Hey, babe, can you do this? Right? Sure, I can do it. Right? I can do it. Will you do it? I will do it. When do you need it done by?
There we go.
Right? When do you need it done by? If you say I need it done in the next hour, sometimes for us it's like, hold on, I'm in the middle of something, game on, whatever. Is there a reason you need it? No, I just want it done in the next hour. So there's not a need for it to be done in the next hour.
Right.
The house ain't gonna burn down, ain't nothing critical, you ain't gonna fall out, ain't nothing wrong if I don't do it in the next hour.
We're gonna be reasonable.
If I get it done within today, would that be fine? Well, that'll work, but I want it done. That is when it becomes nagging because it has an artificial deadline, right?
Right. And I think it depends on what it is too. And then not something that, hey, that I asked you to do or won't done. And then there's does this work? If it's a month and it's not done, then you have nagging, right?
No. It all depends on what it is because if it is something that is, needs to be done, like it's got to be done, and it needs to. If it has a time frame, give a reasonable time frame that is not based on just because I want it done by this, right? Because a lot of things, like for us, we just let logic kick in for us, and our logic isn't always perfect. But we just let logic kick in for us, like, hey.
No, it's not, but it's different.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of times our differences gets the best of us.
It gets the best of us. And it's like, hey, what is it? What is exactly that you need? And when do you need it by? And so this is really for me, and I've had this conversation even with some former employers or whatever. This is actually how I am built. For work and for most areas of my life, I'm built like this. What is the task? What is the deadline? And what are the parameters or guardrails? Anything I need to be aware of while I'm doing it. Once I have those things, just step back. Let me do my thing, right? I am not very good. I'm horrible with being micromanaged. I'm horrible with, and a lot of men are this way, are horrible with when they don't have those kind of like those three parameters in general. I know for me, it's like, what's deadline, what's guidelines and parameters, and deadlines, guidelines and parameters, and the task, right? Tell me what you want done, tell me when you need it done by, and tell me anything I should be looking out for while I'm doing it that could influence how I do it, right?
Right.
So that's the thing, right? Like for example, babe, we need the yard cut. And this wasn't actually one, but it's like, okay, need cut by this. And the parameter was not to run over that twig looking thing that looked like a bush, but it was actually a plant, but it was dead and I didn't know it. It came back real strong though, but that's that big old juniper tree or whatever you got there. That's what I ran over.
The yellow things, they never did come back.
What yellow things?
The flowers that were around it in the middle, remember?
Them
Yes.
things don't look like no twigs. That's that tree, girl.
No.
You was mistaken. Anyway, I ran it over because I ain't had a parameter not to run over the thing that looked like a stick. Apparently it never came back. My bad.
I digress.
Yeah. But you did plant that juniper thing. I don't know what type of tree that is.
Yeah, I don't know what
We
type of-
didn't, that wasn't there when we got there. We planted it.
the purple one.
Yeah.
You know, it was there. It was very small. It was smaller.
I thought that's what I ran over.
Mm-mm. You ran around the things that was around it because that was in the middle, and they had little small. I can't think of the name of them right now. Around it that comes up yellow, and it was purple in the middle.
Skilly dilly do. All
But
right.
it's okay, honey.
Yeah, that's been some years. Anyway, what else? Because we go on. Because
We can because just things are coming or highlighted when you were talking about those things, and we'll talk about it because I don't think we realize how many things impact us, even just like coming up from a kid and things that you're expected to do and doing it as a kid or whatever. Because as a kid, you're told, "Hey," and this just came across when your parents ask you to do something. That means you get up and you do it now. You know what I'm saying? And so a lot of times you are used to that. And so
Right.
when you go like, "Oh, I'm so used to things being done," or "This was expected of me," you feel like that is how it has to be done because that's what I'm used to. Like, hey, when somebody tells you to do something, you get up and you do it right then.
See, and
You
I
know?
grew up,
And then you got to realize, hey, that's not a child.
and this again goes to that being woke up or growing up. I grew up, my mom say, "Buck, make sure you wash them dishes before you go to bed." I knew what the task was. I knew what the guidelines, and I knew the deadline. Wash them dishes before you go to bed, right?
Mhm.
So if I ain't go to bed at 2:00 in the morning,
Yeah, no, that didn't
long
fly in my
as
house.
them dishes got washed before I laid my head on that pillow,
Mhm.
I had met the mission and it wasn't an issue,
Right.
right? There were times where it's like, "Hey, go wash some dishes right now." Okay. I knew then, put the game down, go in there and wash the dishes right now. So I was given very specific instruction, not general instruction, when I was coming up in most instances.
Mm-hmm.
Clean your room today. That was it. It wasn't no clean your room by the time I get home. Clean your room today. Right?
Right.
Long as my mama ain't walk in my room the next morning, my room wasn't clean, I was good. Clean your room today. So it is, but here's the thing about it, and we've talked about communication over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
That's clear
And
communication.
getting to know their ways or their dynamic or how they was raised.
Yeah, but that's clear communication.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we're not assuming they understand
Oh, right.
the part. So it's like, do it now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do it at this time or do it by this time, right? And that's clear communication.
Mm-hmm.
So I always think back to this John Hagee thing, and I forget who I let hold my tapes, and I never got them back. But he did a good teaching on marriage, and he talked about clear communication on one of the tapes. And he said, "Here is clear communication." He says, a husband walks in, the wife is sitting by a fire, she's got a glass of wine and a pistol or something. Like he did like this elaborate thing. And she's like, "Honey, it's that time. I had a long day at work." He's like, clear communication. And the communication wasn't just what came out of her mouth.
Right.
It was the whole setting.
It was the atmosphere.
The whole atmosphere. Clear communication. Right? And that's what has to happen. It's like you have to be clear on. And I think there's a saying, they say the biggest mistake made in communication is assuming that it happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Biggest mistake. Because a lot of times what you thought had happened hadn't happened.
Right.
So, all right. You got anything else, babe?
No, I think that sums it up. So I did talk about those 3 C's: the consistency, consideration, and compassion.
Oh,
And compassion also contributes, or for us, that is that safe safety or that safe place or makes us feel safe. So when we say she needs to feel safe and he needs his peace, we're understanding about creating those environments, not necessarily I got to give you your peace.
Right. Creating that environment. And I do want to be clear when I say for me and security or his peace is peace and quiet, that doesn't mean I want her to shut up. It's just that I need to make sure, I want to make sure that we're having productive conversation and not just conversation for conversation's sake all the time. Right. You know, some of my most joyous times are when, like when we go to Starbucks and we both just working, but we're in each other's presence, right? That's a peace place for me. And we, you know, it's not that we completely silent, chit chat, you ask me something, I ask you something, or we say something silly or whatever, but it's that moment, right, of being in that peace place. And sometimes,
and not just that, it's other things too that through the years that I kind of learned or would never really or understood early on that and I think that's just a thing for men because I've heard somebody else talk about it. Even if you're riding there in the truck, doesn't mean she has to be over there yabbing or you have to be talking back and forth. Just your presence of being in there and taking that ride, maybe holding his hand. Well, maybe if he's not driving or if he is driving.
Depending on what he's doing.
Yeah, depends on what he's doing. If he drives good with one hand or not. Anyways,
I drive great with one hand.
But just being in that space, a lot of times creates that. It doesn't necessarily have to be anything big, elaborate, or a conversation per se going on.
And our favorite thing is audibles, podcasts, different YouTube videos or whatever we might listen to, and it might spark conversation or whatever.
Right.
And just in that, and I got books that I mess around and start. Then my wife here, and now I can't listen to the rest of the book unless she in the car with me.
Right.
Even if they have horrible voice acting.
Right.
Angela.
I like that one. That's a good one.
It is the worst voice acting ever, but my wife loves it.
It's funny. I like it.
And she laughs and giggles the whole time. It is just, it's cute. I enjoy watching you listen to it because you just be over there just smiling.
Right.
And tickle pink.
Yeah. So sometimes it's even like, hey, let's just jump in the car and take a ride because we want to listen to the rest of a chapter or two of the book.
Yep, exactly. So, hey, listen, that's all we have for you tonight. Until next time we're on here. If you have a topic you want us to cover, feel free to inbox us. Drop it in the comments.
Or if you have a topic that you want to come on and talk about with us.
Oh, yeah. If you got a topic, if you want to join the show, whether you here locally or you're somewhere else, we're happy to bring you on the show. We'll have that conversation with you. But until next time, God bless.
Vows, sex, and housekeeping. Ain't no holding back. Let's talk. Ain't no secret. This is vows, sex, and housekeeping. Join the conversation. This is what you need and come and stay a bit. We talking about love and relationships, keeping all your promises.